Hey guys, here we are going to learn React.js in 2 hours with the help of setting a new project. In this video, we are going to see what is React.js and going to set up an environment for the React.js project, and we will see Bootstrap, props, states, components, forms, and we are going to see various conditional renderings in our project and different types of hooks and component life cycles, different type of event handling, browser storages like session storage. First of all, we need to know what is React.js. Basically, it is an open source JavaScript library used for building user interfaces, particularly for single page applications (SPA). Nowadays, this is the most popular tool used for web development. In this React.js, we have various key features like JSX, virtual DOM, and performance, and more. And we are not going to see this more deeper in this video because of the time constraint. We can see this in a different video. First, we can create an environment to set up a React project. For that, we need a Node.js. Node.js is used to create an environment to run a JavaScript. To get the Node.js, just go to any browser and type Node.js, and that will open the Node.js site. You can see it, right? Click on it and it will open the website of Node.js, and you can see the various versions. Here I can see 22.14 is the latest version with long-time support, so I'm going to have this, and just click on it and it will be downloaded. Just click on it and it will guide you to install the Node.js, and in my case I already installed the Node version and I have a 22.14 in my local. Yeah, you can see right, Node.js version gives an 22.14. I have the latest version of LTS, and also we can check the npm version. This will be installed along with the Node.js. Yeah, we can see right. Now we have the environment for React.js. Now we can create a new project with the npx create react app space react tutorial. Yeah, now it will take some time to create a project. Once all the packages will be installed, and then we will be ready to run our project. Yeah, it is keep on loading. Yeah, it is done now. We can see that script which we can run and build, right? So that we can use it later, and we need to navigate inside the project. Before running our project, we can open our code in a Visual Studio Code. Yeah, that has been opened in Visual Studio Code, and we can start the project with the help of command npm start. Yeah, it is loading the script, and it is loading the development server as well. Yeah, it is loaded, and you can see the screen, right? This is a default screen of a React.js project, and it is loading in localhost 3000, and you can also use this IP as well. Next, what we are going to see is like the folder structure for a new React project. So here you are seeing, right? This is a folder structure. First folder is like known models, and it have all the libraries which is installed in our project. And the second folder is like public, and it will have the logos and kind of thing, and it will have the important file like index.html. In this file, you can see basic HTML. See here, you can see right HTML, the open and close tag, and head, body, and you can see the head like titles and all. I'm going to show you the important part in this thing in this file is like this is a line number 31. I will explain you why this is important in the next coming files. Next, I'm going to show you the folder source, and here we can see the different files. And first, we are going to look on the index.js. In this file, we have a React and React has been imported. This is to create elements, and we have a index.css, and this can use to create some styles. And we have an app is imported from the app.js, which is an functional component. I can explain this later. Here is the place. With the help of create root, we are creating a root to display React components inside the browser DOM. Since we created the root for the display React components, whatever the components we are providing into the render, that will be loaded in the browser. And this report tells it's nothing but an analysis of the React application. We don't want to bother much on this. Next, we are going to see one more important file, setup test.js. We are going to set up a testing library with the help of this file. And you can see the files, right, app.js and app.test.js. This app.js file will load very next to index.js file. We can see some CSS file for that, and another file is like app.test.js, which used to write an unit test cases for the particular component, but for now we are not going to much look on it. This is like git ignore file, and we can see the package.json. This is an most important file which has all the dependencies used in our project, and we can see the scripts which are used in a project. Next file is like an package or log.json, which is also an important file which has all the informations about the packages that installed in our current setup. This is a basic code when you are creating a new project. Now we can start working on it. Here we can open the source folder. We can remove the unnecessary file, or we can create a new setup. I'm just deleting the CSS file, and then going to remove the default codes which is provided by the React.js. Yeah, here you can see this error, right? That is because of we deleted the app.css, still we have the input, right? So we are removing all the piece of codes. Yeah, we are going to just add a simple string. Yeah, you can see it, right? So our change has been reflected. The only thing we have is like app loading. Going to create. Now we can create some folder structures. Like I'm going to create a folder called components and utils. And inside that I'm going to create 3 different folders. Those are we are going to create a components, right? So I'm going to have a different folder for each components. That will be easy to find in future. Now I'm going to create an functional component for layout. Here there is nothing special. We are going to create an arrow function that is going to return some HTML content. So going to create a one more functional component for the contacts, which is list.js. and also going to create a one more file, create.js. Here I'm just copying the content from the previous component to save the time here. So I'm just replacing the name of the component and changing it everywhere. Now we are going back to app.js, and here we can import all the three files which we created. Yeah, we imported all the three components, and now we are going to load it inside the app component. We successfully imported all the three files here, and we can save this file and we can see it in the browser. So here we can see the three components, right? Hereafter we are going to design each components with the help of Bootstrap. Here we are going to use a React Bootstrap, so we can go to the browser and type React Bootstrap. It will give the below results. Click on the first link. This link will take you to the React Bootstrap dashboard screen. Click on get started, and here you can see the introduction screen of the React Bootstrap. Here you can see right npm install React Bootstrap. This helps to integrate this library into our application. Just copy this and go to your code and open the terminal. Paste the copied script here and click enter, and this will take some time to install the packages in your application. Yeah, it got completed, and one more thing we need to do, go to the same site again and scroll down, and here you can see the import for a css file, right? Just copy that and we can paste this in index.js and just open it and paste it in the top. Next we are going to validate, are we able to use the React Bootstrap elements. For that we are going to use one of the element to test. We can import the button component from the Bootstrap and we can validate this. Yeah, it is working as expected. We can able to see the button with the Bootstrap design, right? Hereafter, we can start to build our application with the help of React Bootstrap components. In this layout functional component, we are going to build a layout with the top nav and side nav. For now, initially we are going to build a top nav, so that we are going to import few elements from the React Bootstrap like navbar and container. In the top neighbor we are going to add two things. So in the left side we are going to add a brand name, that is we are going to add as React tutorial. In the right side we are going to add some profile details like username. Yes, done. Now we can check the browser. Now we can see the top name with the title and profile. Next we can design something on this, so just inspect and we can add some background and all for the top name. Here we can see the elements of the top navbar that has some class like navbar. So by using this navbar we can add some style for the top nav. In the index.css file we can add some custom css. We saw right for the top nav we have a class like navbar, so we are going to add some css on this same class. Yeah, now we added some background color for the top nav, yeah, and that is reflected. And we can add some style for the brand name and profiles too. For that we need to find what is the class for the particular element, because all we are having it from Bootstrap, right? So those are already having some default classes, so we need to find out that. If you are not using the Bootstrap, in the sense we can write our own class for the particular div and we can write the css. For now we need to get the class from that particular element, and we need to raise, or means we need to override the css for the particular class. Inside the container we have that brand and the text, right? So we can see the classes like navbar that hyphen brand and navbar hyphen text, right? So for now we can write alien style to design. Yeah, we can modify it here. Once this is fine we can add the same style in the index.css file with the respective classes. This style seems okay for me, so I'm just copying this style and going back to index.css. Here we can add the css what we copied. Oh, we need to add inside the dot navbar space, so dot navbar hyphen brand, because that is a class which we saw in that brand tag. And also we can add a style for the profile name. We saw the class name right with dot navbar hyphen text, and we can add some style here. Anyway, in this style we are having dot new bar before the dot new bar text, right? That is a parent class. This style will apply only if that div is inside the dot new bar. Yeah, we can see the changes in the browser, right? Now we can design for the list component. To design the list screen we need to go to list.js inside the contacts folder. First we can import the required elements from the Bootstrap. So mostly we are going to use here card and table. In this contacts list table we are going to have a 4 column like name and email id and contacts, and the fourth column will be like having actions like edit and delete. In the action column, we can have a edit and delete option for the particular contact. Instead of this edit and delete, we can have an icon for this edit and delete options, so that we can go to the browser and we can have the React icons, so that go to the new tab and search for React icons. Click on the React icons. It will redirect you to the React icons dashboard. So here you can see the various options of icons. To use these icons, we need to integrate this package in our application, so that we need to install this React icons. Just copy this line and paste it inside the terminal of your VS Code and click on install. It will take some time to install these packages. Yeah, once this is completed, just go back to the site and search for the icon, whatever you want. I am searching for trash. Here it is listing various options. Here I like this one and I'm clicking on it and just copying this, and I'm just pasting in the top. I'm just imported that particular icon, and I need to use inside the red. For that I can copy the second line, and I can paste it inside the fourth column of the table. And now we can add one more icon for the edit. For that I'm going to search icon pencil. So that is app for the edit, right? So here listing the various option, I'm going to copy this. Now go back to the browser, and here we can see the icons for trash, I mean so delete and edit. And then I'm going to do some alignment fixes in this screen. Here what we can do, we can wrap up with some div and we can add some common margin. Yeah, it looks fine now, it got some enough margin. Now we can do one more thing, we can add some padding in the card as well. For that, go to the list component. Instead of adding padding to the card, we can no we can add a card body inside the card container, so that it gives some enough default styles. Yeah, now it looks fine, and we can add a one more style for this icons. So we can add some space between the icons. For that, we can add some styles in the index.css. We can add some margin for the SVG if that is so inside the TD element. So we can add the margin here. The first one is like for the vertical and second is for the horizontal. Okay, I made one more mistake. Need to remove that. TD is not a class, right? We are going to create a screen for adding contacts. Now we can start the designing part. We can go to the component where we already created for create contacts. Here we can import the required elements from the Bootstrap. We can remove this div and we can start designing the form for contacts. In this form we'll have the three inputs for name and email and contact. We can get the form group and form control and form labels from the form element itself. For more details, you can go through once on the Bootstrap documentation page. You can get a clear idea on this. First input in the form is for name, and that is obviously a text field. So we can add the type like text. Now code changes done for that input for name, and we can go back to the browser. Yeah, we are able to see the input, right? Now we can implement the same for the other two inputs as well. We can import few more elements from the Bootstrap that helps us to have all the input field in a row. We can have this input field inside the call element so that we can split the fields. And next what we can do, I can see more space, so I can change this VS Code settings so that it will be more aligned. Yeah, now we can copy the entire call view and duplicate this for two times so that we can modify for other two inputs. So one is for email and another one is for mobile number. So we can also change the type of the input, email and number. Below the input fields, we can add two buttons. One is to submit the form and one is to cancel the form. And here we are using button element from the Bootstrap. We can do one more thing, or we can split the columns. So we need to have that all the inputs in a single row, so we can split the column equally. Now we can go back to the browser and check the changes. Oh, we missed one thing. We need to import the button tag from the React Bootstrap. We missed to import that. We can scroll to the top. Yes, we can do it here. Now once again we can go back to the browser and we can check the UI. Yeah, now we are able to see the buttons, right? We can add some space between the input and the buttons, so that I'm going to add some margin in the row. For that I'm going to use mb-3, so for that it can add some margin in between the buttons and that row. So mb3 is an basically Bootstrap class. Yeah, now we are able to see the space between the button and the input, right? Now I'm going to add some design for the buttons. So the Bootstrap button have so many variants. I'm going to use success for the create button and danger for the cancel button. And also we can add some space between the buttons. For that I'm going to use some Bootstrap class mx2. This will give some space between the buttons. Yeah, here we can see the difference in the buttons, right? We can add some style for this titles. From the DOM we can modify the changes and we can implement there. I'm just changing the elements and we can add some style here. Seems like this is okay for me, so that I'm going to have these styles in my code. So I'm just going to copy this and going back to my code and open the index.css file. And here I'm going to create a class with the name of titles, and I can paste the styles what I copied from the browser, and I'm going to paste here. We can use the class inside the components where we used titles. Here I can change the element from h3 to label, and also I'm going to add a class name of titles. Now I'm going back to browser and I'm checking that. Now I feel reflected. Yeah, that works fine, and I'm also going to implement the same design in the all the places. We are going to create a new context by using the contact form, and that is going to be listing in the contact list screen. These are the two functional components what we created. One is for listing and one is for create component. First we can go to list component. Here we have static data, right? We can remove this, and we can make this as a dynamic data. Now we can go back to app.js, and we can declare a state variable with the help of use state. Make sure that use state hook is imported from React library. Next we are going to see one more hook, use effect. This is the most important hook for this functional component. We can use this use effect in the different life cycle of the component. Let's see how we can use the use effect. And before that, don't forget to import the use effect from the React library. We can use this use effect in three phases. One is like a mounting phase. When we are using the use effect with an empty array dependency, that will be invoked at the time of component mounting. Next one is updating phase. In this, the component will be re-rendered due to changes in its props or state. By passing the dependency inside the array, that might be a state or props, we can capture the event. This behaves exactly similar to component did update in the class component. Next one is unmounting phase. This will invoke when the time of component is unmounting. This can be achieved by passing a return function inside the use effect with an empty array dependency. Here we are going to use only the mounting phase to update the state value of contact with the default value. We can pass the contact state into the contact list component as a props. Now we can go back to contact list component, and we can get the props which is passed from the parent component. Here the contact is an array. Here we are going to iterate the value with the help of map, and also we are going to return the rows with the different columns what we have in the below. Now the data is listed from the state contacts, and we can go back to the UI. We can see but now it is an empty data because the state contact is an empty array. Now we can add some static data for now to test the list screen whether it able to map the value from the contacts or not. When the component is mounting, we can set the default value for the contact state, and we can go back to the browser and check the screen. Yeah, now we have two records which is in static data, but we can see the user one, right? But we have user1, user2. That is because of we didn't map the value here. We can map the value from the key, name, email and mobile, and we can go back to browser. Here we can see that is reflected. We need to look on one more thing when we are doing listing with map. You can see the error, right? This is because of duplicate elements rendered when we are iterating. We can avoid this by using key props. This key helps to identify the unique element so that we can avoid this error. Now we are not seeing that error, right, after implementing the key in that list. Key should be unique, so I am using index value for that. Now listing works fine. Hereafter we are going to work on the create contact. Let's open the create contact component, and we can create some initial form data, and also we are going to create a state for form data. Here we are having three inputs, so I'm going to create an form data for three inputs that each will have value and error, and validation as well. But for now we are not going to more focus on the validation part, but we can add some basic validations. Hereafter we are going to create an function to capture the on change event of the input. From that we can get the value of the input and we can update it in the form data. We can add a few more props to the input so that we can easily identify the element. Now we are adding a name props. I'm going to have this name as same in the form data for all the three inputs like name and email and mobile, and then we can add a on change event to the input. This will capture the event when any changes in the input. Open the console so that any changes in the input, so that it will print all the event details in the console that we printed in the handle event function. Here we can see all the required inputs. Now we can try to capture the value that is typed inside the input. We can get the name and value from the target key of the event. Let's console name and value here, and we can go back to the browser and validate whether we are able to capture the name and value. Yeah, when we are typing in the input, right, we are able to capture the name and also value, correct? So we have the name as name and value as testing. Now we can save this data in the form data. We can update the captured value in the form data by using set form data. Just updating the value of the input which is triggered on change event, and now we can add the name and event in all the inputs. We can add a on click event in the create button, and we can console the form data to validate whether the values are updating or not. Seems like something is wrong. Not able to find the form data. Yeah, there is some typo. That should be form data. Now we can go back to the browser and we can type all the input fields and click on create. Yeah, that will have the all the form data. You can see, right, all the values has been updated in the JSON. Next we can go back to app.js, and we can create a function to update the form data into the contact state so that it will be reflecting in the list page screen. We can create a function with the name of handle submit. We can pass this function as a props inside the create contact component to get the data from the child component to the parent component. Here we can update the value in the contact state. so that it will reflect in the list screen. Here we can retrieve the handle submit function from the props, and we can add this function in the create on click function, and we can pass the form data as an input so that we can retrieve in the parent component, and we can update in the contact state. We can get the updated form data in this variable data, and before updating this into the contact state, we can have some minor validations. Just we are going to check only that input is having the valid data or not. This function will return an object with the two keys. One is like the form is valid or not. Another one is like having the all the three values in the as an object in the key. We can use the validation function inside the handle submit that will return the two keys, and based on that is valid key. If that is true, we are going to push the values into the contact state so that it will reflect in the table. Here we can bind the value of current form and the existing data with the help of spread operator. Yeah, now we can go back to the browser and we can validate the flow. After providing the values in the inputs, we can click on the create. That should add the data in the table. Something is wrong, I guess. Can here we are able to retrieve the data, but the data is not pushing onto the table. Let me check. Yeah, I think I found the problem here. This is false, but we provided all the valid information. So something wrong in this validation function. Yeah, I just added one more yes in this. Now it should work. Yes, it is added in the table. Now the create flow works fine. We can create a new contact with the help of the form, and if we click on the create, that will reflect in the contact list form. Hereafter, we can focus on the edit and delete part of the contact from the list. For this, we are going to use one more package to identify the unique elements. Go to the browser and type uuid npm. Click on the first link, and you can see this, right. If you scroll down, we can see the import, and it will help us to create an unique ID. Just copy the npm install uuid and go back to your code and open the terminal and paste that and click enter. It will take some time. Once this is installed, and go back to the browser and go to the bottom and copy the import and paste it in the top of the app.js, and also copy this function, and you can add one more key in the object, and you can use this function to generate the id. And also we need to add the unique id when we are creating the contact, so that it will be helpful on edit and delete. We can monitor the contact state, whether the id is added in the state or not. We can create a contact and validate whether the id is generated for the particular contact. Expand the object. Yeah, we can see the id, right, for the new added record. Now we can add a delete and edit function. Now we can add this handle delete contact in the delete icon. We can pass this delete function into the contact list as a props. Now we can go back to the list.js and also can get the function. We can add the on-click event into the trash icon, and we can add the function which we get it from the props, and we can pass the ID of the particular record into that function which we generated from the UUID. Now we can go back to the browser and test the delete functionality. Yes, now we are able to delete the record, and we can see the only one record, right? So delete works fine. Now we can start implementing the edit contact feature, so that we can go back to create.js. We can do one more thing. We can clear the form data when we are clicking the cancel button, so that we can add an on click event in the cancel button, and then we can clear the form data. And also we can map the value from form data in each input, so that we can manipulate the value of the input. And we can go back to the browser and we can check whether we're able to clear the form data when we are clicking the cancel button. Now we're able to clear the form data, right? Hereafter we can more focus on the edit context, so that we can go back to the code. Here we can add one more state to store the edit data. Next, we are going to create a function that helps us to, whenever clicking on the edit icon, that should map the value of the current record into the edit form, so that we can modify the existing record. Now we can pass this function to the contact list component as a props. Now we can go back to the contact list component, and we can get the function which is passed from the parent component as a props, and we can add an on click event in the edit icon. Here we can map the function, and also we can pass the entire value of the row inside the function. When we click on the edit icon in the UI, This handle edit contact function will trigger and update the value in the edit data, and we can pass this edit data into the create contact component as a props, and we can map this edit data value into the form data. Now we can map this edit data into the form. When there is any changes in the edit data, this use effect will trigger. If there is any edit data, we are going to map this value into the form data. And if there is no edit data means we are going to map the initial form data. We are going to create an one more state variable to store the ID of the selected record. The code level changes has been done. Now we can go back to the browser and we can validate that. Click on the edit icon. We can see the values mapping, right? Now we can do some label changes. Now we can see the create contact, and if we click on the edit icon, that will be like edit contact and update button. So the label changes has been working fine. Now if we click on the update button, it will create the new contact record because we didn't implement the update functionality. So that we can go back to the code in create.js file. In the handle submit function, we can pass the ID. If that is an edit form, then it should have the ID, and we can remodulate the handle submit function in the app.js. We can take one more parameter as an input from the function handle submit. Here, if the ID exists, then it should be an edit. If there is no ID, then it should be an create. Now we can update the updated contacts in the contact state, and we can go back to the browser and validate the create and edit flow, changing the email ID now, and clicking on the update, and yeah, it's reflected, and we can change the mobile number, and now click on the update button, and you can see the mobile number is updated, right? So here we implemented edit contacts successfully. Till now we created a CRUD for our contacts. Hereafter we are going to implement routing in our application. For now we are having create list and edit in the same screen. Hereafter we are going to create a route for the each feature, and also we are creating a dashboard screen. Without wasting time, let's do the changes. We can create a new functional component inside the folder dashboard, so that we can create a routing for dashboard and also contacts. Next, we can create a file route.js. In this file, we can have all the routings. To implement routing, we need one more library, React Router DOM, so that we can open the terminal and do npm install React Router DOM. We can import the browse router and route and routes from the React Router DOM, and we can add the required routes for our application. Now we created all the required routes for our application. Now we can go back to the app.js. We can replace the existing component with this route component. Now we can comment this existing components and we can go back to the browser. Yeah, here the routing works fine. We can see the dashboard component in the empty route, and also we can check the other routings as well. Looks like something is wrong with the create contact routing. Yeah, looks like some typo issue. We can change this and test it once. Yeah, now it works fine. Next, we can rearrange the functionality part of the screens. First, we can go back to list component. Till now, we manage the contacts data from the app.js in a state variable. Hereafter, we are going to store the data in a local storage. Here we are declaring a new state variable to have the contacts, and also we are going to use the use effect to map the value from the contacts stored in the local storage. We can create a new file called constant.js in the utils so that we can store the constants here. I can see the mismatch in the import and the file name of constant.js, so that I'm changing that. Now we can go back to the browser and we can validate the UI. Still you can see the empty records in the contact list because there is no data in the local storage. Now we are going to add a button that takes us to the create contact screen. Yeah, now we are able to see the button, right? And we can add a click event on the button, and we can add the routing inside the function. Now we created a router function with the help of use navigate from the React router DOM. Now we can go back to the browser. Yeah, now looks it's working fine. Now we can add a navigation in the cancel to go back to the list component, and also we can restructure the create contact functionality. Creating a function when we are clicking on the cancel button to take us to the contact list component. We can add the created function in the on-click event of cancel button. We can go back to the browser and validate the changes. Click on the cancel button. Yeah, we are able to navigate back to contact list screen. Hereafter, we are going to move the functions from the app.js to their respective components. In this function, we are going to save the create data into the local storage so that in the list screen that can be retrieved and displayed in the screen. Here we are going to get the existing record from the local storage and we are going to append the new create data, and again we are going to update in the local storage. Don't forget to import the variables. Here we are going to update the constant, so I'm just changing const to let. When we are updating the data in this local storage, we need to stringify the data, and when we are retrieving the data, we need to parse the data. We need to move few more things from app.js to the create.js. All the changes made for create contact. Now we can go back to the browser and validate the create flow. Before clicking on the submit, we can inspect the site, and we can go back to the application tab and open the storage. Now we can click on the create button so that it will store in the local storage with the key of contact list. We can do one more thing. We can navigate back to list component once the create is successful. Yeah, looks the complete flow works fine for create. Now we can look on the deleted edit part. We made the record changes for the delete contacts so that we can go back to the browser and validate once, and delete works fine, and we can test the entire flow with create and delete. Now create and delete works fine, and we can check the code for edit. We are going to add a new route for the edit contact. In that route, we are going to have a ID as a params. Remove the handle edit contact function from the app.js so that we can create a new function in the list.js. In this function, we are going to create a navigation to edit contact along with the selected contact ID, and going back to the browser, and when you click on the edit icon, it will navigate back to edit contact, and you can see the ID, right? But still we can see the texts and create and submit so that we can make some changes on that place. Here we are going to use one more hook, use params, that helps to get the ID from the route. We can check once whether we are able to retrieve the ID from the params by consoling it in the use effect. Looks like I missed to remove the edit data from few places. Let me clean up the code once. Yeah, the ID has been printed in the console. Now we can make the required changes to map the selected value in the form. If we are having ID in the URL, we are considering the doesn't edit, and we are just getting the value from the local storage. and we are trying to map those data into the form data. I need one more changes, so I'm just changing constant to length here. Yeah, looks like it works, and it is loading the data of a particular ID, and we are just modifying the email, and we can update the value. We can check whether it is updated or not. Yeah, we can see the updated value in the mono, right? Now we can check once the complete edit flow. Yeah, here the changes are working good, and hereafter we are going to do some style changes to beautify our application. Yeah, the style works fine and looks good too. Now we can do some code cleanup. In the left side, we are going to build a side nav, and in the right side, we are going to have the entire application what we built. Here we can retrieve the entire element as a children, and we can bind these children inside the main div, and we can go back to the browser and validate the changes. Yes, so that is reflected, and here it needs some alignment changes. We can add the classes for the layout and the side nav so that we can design with the class. Yeah, we made the required changes for the layout, and we can go back to the browser and see the changes. Yeah, we can see the side nav and the contact screen, but still that is not the occupied complete screen, so that we can inspect and check it once. Yeah, now looks fine, and hereafter we'll design some changes in the side nav. Till now, we have a dummy data in the side nav. Hereafter, we are going to implement the required routing names and the routings. For routing, we are going to use the use navigate hook, and also we are going to create a function to do the routings to the specific components. Now we can add the routing function inside this menus, and if we click on this will directly take us to the components. The changes has been made, and looks we are good. And also need to pass the routing into the function. I think now we can go back to the browser and validate. I think something is wrong here. What was the error? Use navigate may be used only in say the context of the router. Okay. What the issue is like? We are using the browse router inside the routing component, right? So that we are not able to route outside that component. So what we need to do, we need to move out the browse router out of this component, and we can move that to the app component so that it will be easy to route anywhere inside the application. Now the component is loading, and we can test the routings as well. Yes, and that is working as expected. And we can add some styles for this sine rows. Yeah, now it looks like fine for me, so that I'm going to design a dashboard component hereafter that will show us the some details about the contacts that we are added. Yeah, we are displaying here the two cards. One is for the welcome card and another is for the, we are going to display the number of contacts inside that. Hereafter, we are going to map the values from the local storage what we are added from the contact list screen.